What's up guys, my name's Brandon and Apple just released macOS 15 Sequoia Beta 1, and in this video I'm going to be showing you more than 50 new features and changes found in the software. So first off, we have some new wallpapers, and I am rocking the new Sequoia wallpaper right here. So if you go into the settings and go to wallpaper, you will notice that we have a new macOS Beta dynamic wallpaper. I'm sure that will eventually say Sequoia like the other ones, but for now it says macOS Beta, and from here you can choose between the light and the dark modes. The light has the orange and the blue, dark is more of a blue and a green, and you could also have this show as a screensaver. But we get more than one wallpaper this time. We also have a retro Macintosh wallpaper, which is pretty neat, and you can see it does have an animation there, and you have multiple different colors to choose from. My favorite is the dark gray down here, and you can see kind of what that looks like with the animation. Really like retro vibes from that, and it's pretty cool, and you can change this to light mode if you would like, but I think it looks really good in dark mode. So one of the headlining features in macOS Sequoia is window tiling. So if we take a window here, we'll take reminders for example, and we put this in one of the corners or the side or even the top right here, you can see the outlines that correspond with where we're putting this on our desktop. Now, if I want to make this, I'll make this a little bit smaller so it can go into one of these corners. So I'll go down to the bottom left corner. So you can see we get the outline of it there. Now, if I want to take notes and put that up in the upper corner over here, we can do that. And you can do this with all of your different windows. So for example, Safari as well, we can put that in maybe this bottom corner right there. So let's go ahead and complete it so we can have 4 windows. So we're going to take the calendar and put this up in the top right here until we get the outline of that section. Now, if you want to make this easier, you could also hold down the Option key. So if you hold Option, it will show you at all times where you're going to be placing this. So you can see I don't have to guess. It now shows, and now I can let go right there, and we have a nice tiled desktop. And another way to do this is if you're inside of an application, just go up top to Window right here, and you will see Move and Resize. And you have halves, you have quarters, and you also have Arrange. Along with, you can see we do also have keyboard shortcuts. So if you want to have, if you really get the hang of this and you want to have your applications tiled in a certain way, you can perform those actions with these keyboard shortcuts. Or you can also just go to the window and hover over the green icon in the top left, and you get the Move and Resize and the Fill and Arrange options. And if you go into the settings and go to the desktop and dock section, we have some settings for this as well. So if we scroll down until we get under Windows, we have 3 options here that are new. So tile by dragging windows to screen edges. So that's what I showed in the beginning. And then we also have hold the Option key while dragging windows to tile, which I would recommend having that turned on. That's how you got it to get, easier to magnetically kind of go into place. And then also we have tiled windows have margins. So this is something you might want to turn off. So take a look at all of our windows here when I turn this off. You will see that they expand to the full screen. So if you want to see some of your desktop for whatever reason, you can keep the margins on, but I think most people will probably want to turn the margins off so you take full advantage of your entire display. And then in the same desktop and dock section in settings, if we scroll up to near the top, we have a new option under double click a Windows title bar to, before it was only zoom, minimize, and do nothing, but now with this new version of macOS Sequoia, we can now fill. So what this means is that if I have this window right here, and maybe I make this a little bit smaller, if I double click right here or double tap on the title bar, this top section right here, you will see that it will basically maximize it. So that is a very handy new feature that I'm glad to see come to macOS Sequoia. Now we also have some changes to video conferencing. So if you go into a video conference on either a Google Meet or a Zoom, whatever you're doing, we have a couple of new options. So you can see me there, and if you go up to the top right here, you'll notice that we have a new background option. So what this does is it will basically give you a green screened background, and you can actually change this as well. So if you click on that, you get the option for just these gradient colors. You also have different mountains that you can choose from, different environments, or you can choose one of your own photos to add into here, which is pretty neat. And then if you go to share your screen, we have a new preview mode for the presenter overlays. You can see up here, we now have the option to change your presenter overlay. So if you want your little image to be small or large, you can change that here. You could also verify that you want to share your specific screen or your specific window before you actually go live and potentially embarrass yourself. macOS Sequoia also improves Safari. So not only is Safari now better in terms of performance and efficiency, but we also have several new features, including highlights. So highlights is if you go to maybe a how-to guide right here, you'll notice up in the top left of the address bar, we have this new little icon there. And if you see these purple little sparkles here and click on that, that's going to give you basically a summary of the article. So it gives you a quick breakdown of everything that is in this article, along with a link to show reader. So that will open it in the new reader view, and you can see the summary over here to the right. That makes it really easy and digestible. And this also works under different circumstances as well. So for example, if you go to a hotel website and you cannot find their address or their phone number, if you look up here in the top left, we have those purple sparkles, which means if we click on that, it's going to show us the address and even a quick link to go and navigate to that hotel in this example. And this will also show phone numbers as well if a phone number is found on the website, so you can easily get access to the phone number without looking all over on the website. And also the overall reader view is improved in macOS Sequoia. So you can see that it just looks better in general. Also, you can access the reader settings by clicking on the reader icon up in the address bar, whereas before in macOS Sonoma, you had to click on the two A's to the right over here in the address bar, and the settings pane just looks so much better as well. So we have our fonts down below, and we also have the option to choose text size based on the percentage. Before, you could only go up or down by a point. And then we also have find on page in this section, and also these sections now have headers. So we have theme and font. macOS Sequoia also adds a new feature in Safari called Viewer, and this allows you to see video on websites more prominently on that website. So we have a video right here, a dedicated video on Apple, and if we start playing that, you will notice up in the top left right here, we have the option for video viewer, and sometimes that video viewer icon will actually show up here in the top left, and it will take you there right away. But you can click on it and it's going to change the view of that video. So it's going to make it front and center, and you can see all of the attention is on that video, and we still have access to our AirPlay and all of our other options down here as well. Also, when you go to the start page on Safari, you'll notice that it now shows suggestions. Before it said Siri suggestions, and then below that we have a new look to the privacy report. And there's also a couple of changes to web apps. So there's now support for web extensions and content blockers in web applications. Also, there's now support for opening links directly in web applications instead of Safari. Also, these settings are rearranged similar to how they are on iOS 18 on the iPhone. So there are several changes. So you'll see right away that underneath of general, we now have accessibility, whereas before it was appearance and then accessibility. And then the desktop and dock displays, the wallpaper, screensaver, all of those have kind of been added into one section now on macOS Sequoia. So they're all in this top section. And then below that, we have the notifications, sound, focus, screen time, all of that. You could just see a big change in the way that these settings are organized on this sidebar. And there's also a big change to the iCloud section inside of your settings. So if you go into your Apple account, which again, you can see it says Apple account up here instead of Apple ID. And if you go into the iCloud section, this part has been completely reworked as well, very similar to what we see on iOS 18. So we have the subscriber edition badge over here on the right. We have this nice little, bar right here that shows our storage. We have a green light that says we are saved to iCloud with all of these, different sections right here, along with iCloud Plus features all in one area. It's just so much more neat and so much better laid out than it was on macOS Sonoma. It was very clunky and very confusing and really just not appealing at all in macOS Sonoma. So now it just visually looks better and it's easier to navigate navigate through. And while we're in the settings, I do also want to talk about two new accessibility features. So if you go into the accessibility section, we have a new option for hover text. So it says that if you press on the command key, it will display a large text view of the item under the pointer. So if we turn this on, let's go into Safari, and let's say that the navigation bar is a little bit too small. I can't really read what that says up there in the nav bar. So if you hold on the command key and then go up to, put your mouse cursor on these different icons, you can see it makes that text large so you can see very easily what it says in that nav bar, and these are also clickable. And this works system wide. So even inside of settings, you can see I can kind of just hover over these different sections while holding down the command key, and it makes that text large. And then we also have another cool feature that's in iOS as well, and that is vocal shortcuts. So if you go down under speech and go to vocal shortcuts, you can set this up, and it says this will teach your Mac to recognize a custom phrase that you can say to quickly perform an action. We also have the passwords application on macOS Sequoia. So just like we have on iOS and iPadOS 18, we now have access to the passwords app, which essentially just uses all of the data that you've saved in the iCloud keychain over the years. And this is turned into a dedicated application now. So you have a nice little navigation over here on the left-hand side where you can see your pass keys, your codes, your Wi-Fi passwords, your deleted, and also security, along with your shared groups. So it's a nice and easy way to have all of your passwords in one place. You could also have two-factor authentication codes go through this application, so you no longer need like a Google Authenticator or an application like that. Oh, and there's also a new section under your Apple account for sign in with Apple. And if you go into here, it's going to show all of the applications or all of the websites where you use the sign in with Apple feature. We have some changes to the calendar application. So just like with iOS and iPadOS 18, it is now integrated with reminders. So if you go to click the plus up here in the top left, you now have the option for new event or new reminder. Now, if you click on new reminder, you will get a lot of the same options that you would get in the standalone reminders application, such as adding an image, a URL, you can change the priority, all of that. And you will notice that it populated right here in my widget for reminders, and we can also complete it from here as well. So if you click on it, it will complete that reminder, and it just disappeared from my widget. We also have the new calculator application on the Mac. So if you go into the calculator, you will notice that it has a redesign compared to macOS Sonoma. We also have the calculator button down here in the bottom left-hand corner. And when you click on that, you can get access to the scientific calculator, the programmer, so you can see this right here, which is pretty neat. And then we also have a built-in unit conversion in the calculator application. So now you can convert, for example, 96 USD equals 88.84 euros. And you can change this to a lot of different units. You have angle, area, data, energy, forecast. You have all these different things that you can change it to. You even have a search right here if you cannot find what you're looking for. So that is awesome to have that built in to the native calculator app. And then also we have the math notes feature, which is really cool. So basically, if you type out a math problem like 56789 times 9876 and then put an equal sign, it will automatically give you the answer right away. Like within a millisecond, you can see that answer, and then you can press on enter and you get this cool little animation and it shows the results. And then after you get that result, you can select it and you have this option to increase or decrease it as well. And it changes the original number that it takes to equate that new result. And you can also do this with your own handwriting as well, which I showed in my iOS 18 video. Now also in the notes application, we have the ability to highlight text. So you can see I can highlight this text. If I select it right here, we have the option to press on these two A's up top. And from here, we have this highlight button right here. So we can press on highlight and change the color. So if I want to change that to maybe mint in this example, you can see it is in a mint color now. And if you want to do this easier, you can just use the keyboard shortcut Command Shift E. So if I go to Adventure and hold down Command Shift and E, you can see that will highlight it much easier. And there's also collapsible sections, which is really nice for making more streamlined and more professional notes. So these are both collapsible. As you can see, I made these collapsible because these are headings. So that happens automatically. So if I start typing something out and I want to make that a header, you can see if I type in heading and put something something underneath of that, it will automatically make it so it is collapsible. And then you can also have live audio transcription. So we have a new option up here in the taskbar, and this is to record audio. So if you press record audio and you press on the little annotate button down here in the bottom left-hand corner, it will transcribe everything that you're saying. So let me test it out. This is a test to see if the audio transcription works on the Mac. So if you press on done, you can see we have the transcript right there. You could also right click on that and copy it if you want to. In the messages application, we have pretty much all of the same iOS and iPadOS 18 features. So if you go to send a text message, you can now schedule that to send later. So it's a new send later option that you can see right here. And if you click on that, you can choose the date and the time that you want to send that message. And if I want to send it, you can see that when it is scheduled, you can change it if you want before it gets sent. If you click on edit, you can either send it now, edit the time, or delete it. And there's also changes to the tap back menu. So if you right click on a message, you will see that not only is everything more colorful in here now, before it was just all gray, but you could also add a custom emoji as a reaction, as a tap back to that specific message. So you can see I'll just do a MacBook and I responded to that text with a MacBook reaction. And there's also text effects for individual words. So if you select an individual word right here and then right click on that, we have text effects. So the UI is not great because you can't see a preview before you send it like you can on iOS and iPadOS, but you can see that you can change that and it does show the animation down here. And when you send it, the other person will see the animation for that word. And you can also mark up the text with bold, italics, underline, and strike through. Here's an update I was not expecting. The chess application has new graphics. After years of having the same graphics on chess, we now have Chess 2.0 with macOS Sequoia, and it looks awesome. And speaking of games, if you're into more hardcore games than chess, we have Game Porting Toolkit 2.0 that was just introduced with macOS Sequoia. And this is a toolkit that basically makes it easier for developers to port their games over to Mac, iPhone, and iPad. And what's great about macOS Sequoia and this new toolkit is that it now supports ray tracing and AVX2 instruction set. So this is just going to help get more AAA games and more high quality games on the Mac. Now also, there are new native Mac games that Apple announced that support ray tracing, some that are out now and some that are coming soon. And these include games like Palworld and Assassin's Creed Shadows and many more. Oh, and speaking of gaming, we also have personalized spatial audio with head tracking for gaming if you have the AirPods, and also if you have the AirPods, voice isolation works when connected to a Mac, as does the hands-free Siri interactions feature, where you can nod your head yes or shake your head no to accept a call or whatever the notification is if your AirPods are connected to your Mac and you get that prompt in your ears. In the Freeform application, there's a new feature called Scenes, and this allows you to organize and present your board section by section. So I'll show you what I have right now. So if I press on the over arrow to go to the next scene, you can see this is my number 1 scene. Here's my number 2. My number 3, and my number 4. And notice how the values down here change of how much I'm zoomed in, and that's because this also supports zoom. So basically what I'm doing here, if I want to create another scene to add to that, so let's just say we add something way up here, and I want this to be a new scene where that's the only thing in the frame. So I'll put this right here, I'll just type in test, and now we're going to create a new scene for that section. So we're just going to go down here to these 3 lines and press on that, and we're going to add scene. So now whatever we see on our screen right now is part of that scene, and you can also reorganize these as well. You can move them around to whatever order you would like. You can also print individual scenes, you can export individual scenes, or if you go up to the 3 dots up here, you can export every scene as a PDF or print them. So I can see that being very useful for a number of different scenarios. Now also in Freeform, we have snap to grid. So you can see that when I move this note around, or if I move any type of shape or anything around, it snaps to the grids in the background. So we always had this grid back here, but now with macOS Sequoia, we can snap to those grid points. And you can access that setting under the View tab and then snap to grid. You can turn that on or off right there. In the Maps application, we have access to hikes and custom routes. So if we go into Sequoia National Park, for example, and we scroll down, you will see that we have a new section for popular hikes. And from here, you can see all of the different popular hikes, and they're all mapped out. And if you click on one of those, you can see the little, graph right here that shows the elevation and everything. And you can also get your directions. It shows how long it will take. You can add it to the library to save offline. And of course, you can create a custom route. So it says plan a hike, create your own walking route from here, and you can choose to set your starting point and your end points. And we also have topographic maps just like we do on iOS. And then in the Photos application, we have a few changes here, so not near as many as we have on iOS and iPadOS, but you'll notice that down over here on the left under collections, we now have days. So it's no longer up top right here. Before it used to say days, months, years, and all, but now days is as a collection. And that's because that is a new feature in macOS Sequoia and iOS 18. It basically creates your days into albums automatically. Same with trips down here, which is really cool. Trips is another new one that I think is really awesome. It basically just aggregates all of your trips and knows when you're out of town and puts those pictures into one album. And then also down here, we have utilities. So some of these we've had before, but some of these are brand new. Like we can see receipts, for example, right here. We have handwriting, illustrations. All of these are under this utilities section. In the weather application, we now have home and work location. So you can see my location right here is set as my home. But if I had a work location in a different city or state, I can have that set and it will now show both of those in the weather application. Also, we now have the feels like temperature directly underneath of the actual temperature, and it's also less opaque, so it stands out a little bit more. And if we go down to the feels like section, we have this little orange bar right here now. And also this section is combined with the chance of precipitation and the precipitation totals, and it's now considered conditions. In the home application, we now have guest access, so you can now manage how and when people enter your home. And if you go into your settings and go to energy, you'll notice that you can now connect your energy account. So this is only available for select energy companies, but eventually you will be able to connect to your energy supplier, energy company, to get more specific data and statistics. Oh, and also one other thing that Apple mentioned is that robot vacuum cleaners will soon be able to be added to the home application, and that will also apply to scenes, automations, and Siri requests. So that's not available yet, but it is coming later this year. And then speaking of coming later this year, iPhone mirroring is one of the headline features for macOS Sequoia, and it is not available as of beta 1. So we have the icon down here, but it does not work. So this is going to be awesome when it does come out. I will be making a video on that, but this basically just uses continuity, and you can see your iPhone notifications on the Mac. You can drag and drop between devices. You can do a lot with this feature. So I'm really looking forward to that. And of course, the other thing I'm waiting on is Apple Intelligence. So this is also not available just yet. It's coming later this fall, and I will be making a separate dedicated video just on AI or Apple Intelligence, but none of that is available just yet in these early betas. So that is macOS Sequoia. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up. Also, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future macOS Sequoia and iOS 18 features. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.